la main ne va pas.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Priscilla.
Hi.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi. Hi, Howard.
Everybody, we'll get started in a few minutes. I'm just letting people have some time to settle in and get to the meeting. Okay, well, I'm going to get started with introductions at least, so that we have plenty of time for Q&A. And as people filter in, they can watch this recording a little bit later. So the first note of welcome, everybody, is that we are being recorded right now, and it's going to be up publicly for those who aren't able to make today. We're also going to create an FAQ document of all the questions that are asked during this session and post that on our website. And so we're going to do a short overview of the fellowships and the different campus projects, and then we're just going to open the session up for questions. Feel free, if we don't get to you, or if you're feeling like time is running out, to put your questions in the chat so that we can answer those at a later time in writing on our website. So hi, everybody. I am Casey Holman. I go by she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Director of Programs and Administration for the CUNY Humanities Alliance, based at the Graduate Center. Luke and Katina, would you introduce yourselves as well?
Sure. Hi. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Luke.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Katina Rogers. I'm one of the co-directors, along with Luke Waltzer, on the CUNY Humanities Alliance grant. I'm also co-director of the Futures Initiative at the Graduate Center.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I'm Luke Waltzer, Director of the Teaching and Learning Center at the Graduate Center, co-directing this project with Katina. I'm also a faculty member in the ITP certificate program and MA program in digital humanities at the Graduate Center.
Thank you. So as some of you may have seen in the description for the fellowships, the CUNY Humanities Alliance began in 2016 as a partnership with LaGuardia Community College, focused on teaching in community colleges. And now it's expanded to include 3 new partners, the Borough of Manhattan Community College, Guttman Community College, and Hostos Community College. And its focus has shifted to educational support, such as experiential learning or learning design, and those are reflected in the projects. So all of those projects, the thing that they have in common is a broad broadening of the value and structure of the humanities and higher education, right? Expanding beyond the classrooms and the traditional notions and structures of teaching. So these fellowships will provide an opportunity to diversify your experience with careers that are possible in and around the academy. There are 12 one-year fellowship positions, renewable for second year, and the funding and time requirements operate much like a GCF. And for those with a GC, except it's not teaching hours, it's work hours. So it operates about 15 hours a week for each semester. And for those with a GCF, just to note that this replaces the service requirement for your GCF. We always get questions about that, so I'm answering it straight off the bat. So for your time, you'll do about 5 hours at the Graduate Center doing sort of professional development work with us, and about 10 hours at the designated campus working on your project. So I'm going to first turn it over to Luis, who can introduce himself and talk a little bit about the professional development at the GC.
Hi all, my name is Luis. I'm the Humanities Scholars for the Humanities Alliance, and I'm based at the Teaching and Learning Center at the Graduate Center. I graduated a couple of years ago from the LILAC program at the Graduate Center, and I also was a fellow for the first cohort at the Humanities Alliance. So I'll be working with fellows. We will be creating a space at the Graduate Center that is going to be allow us to create a sense of community, but also it's going to work a little bit as a seminar to find whatever professional development makes sense for us. So the idea is to have recurrent meetings, weekly meetings, when we're going to be able to sort of share the experience of what's happening in the campus and grow together as scholars and intellectuals. So it's a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we're going to be working together for next year and then years to come.
Great, thank you, Luis. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order for the campuses to sort of overview their campus projects. So if BMCC would start us off. Oh, Jim, for some reason we can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you. So while you figure that out, I'm going to move on to Guttman. So if we could go over to Guttman, Howard.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see all of you. It's nice to see especially those of you who I have known for years and have worked with in different contexts, including this one back in 2016 when the project started at LaGuardia. Our project at Guttman is centered around the course that we have on our books called The Arts in New York City, which all first-year students take, and which is an introduction to it's an introduction to the arts with a focus on experiential learning, which takes them out of the classroom and into cultural institutions around the city in Manhattan. We have had this course on the books from the beginning. It's always been something that we value, that students value a great deal, and we see this as an opportunity. We see this project as an opportunity to really deepen how the course works, to expand the academic content of it, and at the same time sustain and deepen the experiential piece of this. And working with the fellows will be a wonderful opportunity for the fellows to work with us and to work with our tremendous students and faculty, and it will be a big help to us as well as we look to try to make that course a stronger piece of our curriculum and really the centerpiece in some ways of our humanities education. So that's in a nutshell what we're hoping to accomplish.
Great, thank you, Howard. Jim, should we try your audio again?
Yeah, I disconnected the wires.
It worked.
I could hear you, but so I'm Jim Berg. I'm Associate Dean of Faculty at BMCC, and we have designed up to 3 different experiences for humanities fellows to work with my team in faculty affairs, many of whom have PhDs and can help with the professional development. The projects are about working directly with faculty members to design experiences either in a general, what we're calling a learning experience design, or in helping faculty to craft undergraduate research projects, and in terms of experiential learning. So one of the things that is most interesting to us is the idea of undergraduate research, which humanities scholars often have a hard time working student researchers into their own projects. So this can be a back and forth between a faculty member integrating an undergraduate into a research project that they have designed, or helping that undergraduate to design their own research projects. We have a very active open education project here, and we like to help students and create space for students to become active researchers. My team is about 5 people right now, and we'll also add a faculty coordinator to work with the fellows and also to interact and liaison with the Graduate Center. So those are the things that we're talking about here.
Great, thank you, Jim. So on to Hostos. Carlos, are you?
Can you hear me? Great. Good morning, everyone. For us, it's a very exciting opportunity to get to know the potential fellows and share the projects we have in the plan. I'm the director of the Office of Educational Technology and the Center for Teaching and Learning at Hostos Community College. And there's 2 projects that we're going to be focusing on. One is making sure that we build structures and expand learning communities. We have a number of pairings across disciplines that have been happening, and we want to make sure that we provide the support for this corporations or these learning communities to expand, and also to make sure that we identify opportunities to assess the work happening in these communities, and making sure that we help building partnerships across disciplines with different faculty. So the fellows will be working closely with faculty to identify what those linked assignments and assessments be for those classes, and also helping tell the story of these learning communities, helping promote the work and visualizing the work, sharing with the college community. The other project is about experiential learning. We have a very robust service learning and civic engagement committee at Hostos, who have been working for a number of years in designating courses and also identifying experiential learning opportunities for the different courses across disciplines. The idea with this is that fellows will support continuing this work, working closely with faculty who will be interested in developing a service learning or civic engagement opportunity, and making sure that there's a coordination to facilitate syllabus revisions, implement pilots around these opportunities, and making sure also that they have an opportunity to work closely with faculty and potentially with the students that are doing this service learning courses. And also, the same idea, we want to make sure that that the fellows engage with faculty in promoting and sharing the work being done in these projects.
Great, thank you so much. So we're to LaGuardia now. Is it Priscilla or Eric?
Thanks, Casey. I'm Eric Hoffman. I'm an assistant dean of academic affairs at LaGuardia. Like some of you have said, it's great to see everyone here, not only the students from the Grad Center, but all of these partners we've worked with in the past, including some of our fellows from the first cohort. So it's great to see you here. We brought our whole team, actually. We have 3 faculty, and the Associate Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning is here. My responsibilities and Priscilla's are primarily for faculty and staff learning at the college in order to support some of our broad student success initiatives. So we have 2 projects. The one is ePortfolio, and we're looking for 2 fellows who would work with Professor Tanya Hendricks and Professor Jessica Bowman. Tanya is in natural sciences, but supports liberal arts portfolio practice, and Jessica is in humanities. So LaGuardia, if you're not familiar with ePortfolio or ePortfolio practice, we have a very extensive practice and a lot of faculty scholarship around ePortfolio as well. So Jessica and Tanya will be working with fellows to support learning portfolio practices connected to co-curricular learning, showcases, and outreach for transfer and career around portfolio, as well as perhaps some focus groups around that work. And we'll be looking for 2 fellows to work with them. And the other project is Collaborative Online International Learning. This is COIL, if you're familiar with that. And Professor Olga Axikalova from our English department is really one of the leaders in CUNY around this work. And we're looking to support what is a growing practice around COIL. And I really want to turn it over to our faculty, if you just want to add a word about some of this. So I know there'll be a question period here, but you can do much better than I in describing very briefly what that work would entail. Olga?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you. So yeah, I'll say a couple of words about COIL. It's known actually as virtual exchange, so it takes different shapes. COIL is collaborative online international learning, usually concerns 2 or more classes. So faculty design a collaborative project with a peer abroad, and then students engage in those collaborative projects using digital tools. And it's particularly, I think, relevant for humanities because one of the things that underlies COIL is the development of epistemological humility, right? The idea that our perspective is not the only one. We are looking at different perspectives, and students are actually engaging in a global dialogue together. And another thing is empathy, right? So those are the 2 principles that I think are key to humanities. And that's what COIL makes very possible in a very practical way. And so what fellows will be doing at LaGuardia is helping us facilitate professional development. So you'll really be learning a lot about the methodology of COIL, which kind of targets a bunch of different high impact practices, right? There is global learning, there is experiential learning, there is undergraduate research, there is also collaborative learning, there is digital learning, right? There's a bunch of different things that COIL combines. So it will be exciting to see how that comes into practice. And then also we're kind of assessment program. So you will be learning that side of the of academic program management, as well as perhaps looking very closely at how faculty are developing research projects, some of them with the students, right? So if you're interested in that, in how you can turn a teaching practice into a research project, there will be an opportunity to kind of participate in that as well. Thank you. I can answer more questions later.
Great. Thank you all so much for overviewing those projects. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it and represented all of you so well. So thank you so much. I will say structurally, we're aiming for 3 fellows per campus distributed across those projects pretty evenly. And there's also 2 other components of the CUNY Humanities Alliance, which we haven't mentioned, which are our research associate, Sujung Kim, who is here, who sort of does research on behalf of and about the CUNY Humanities Alliance in our programs, and the CUNY Peer Leaders, which is an undergraduate humanities enrichment based in social justice phenomenon. And I believe one of our co-directors, Lauren Melendez, is on this call as well. So fellows will have some interaction with those different components, but sort of less so than the campus projects. But I wanted to acknowledge them as they're here. So we're going to open it up to questions. Does anybody have a question? Feel free to raise your hand or begin chiming in, or put your question in chat. So I see a question in chat. Eligibility, entering years 2 through 5 study in fall of 2018. I'm sorry, it should be entering years 3 through 5 of study in fall 2021. Here is the call for, I'm going to put the call for fellows in the chat here. Thank you, Katina, for clarifying that. Are there other questions? Fellowships are available on 4 CUNY campuses. May we express a preference for the campuses where we would like to work at? Yes, and in fact, so the interview process, so the application process and the interview process, fellows will be sort of matched with a particular project. We've left this open during the application stage, but if you have a project that you're particularly interested in or feel like your experience and skills better fit, please feel free to call that out in your application. And during our interview process, we'll be speaking with candidates about the different campus projects that we think you'd be a good fit for, and how you sort of see yourself fitting those as well. And others also feel free to jump in who are in the interview panel. The next question, are we able to apply for 2 different positions, for example, LaGuardia and Guttman? Yes. So when you apply for the fellowship more generally. And then the process of interviewing will be to sort of decide and select the project. Okay, great. Are there other questions? Feel free to also raise your hand and talk if you'd like to. You don't have to just put it in the chat.
Casey, I wanted to give Tanya and Jessica just a brief moment to say something about the ePortfolio.
Oh, sure.
Project, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Tanya, did you want to go or did you want me to start? Me? Okay. Hi, I'm Jessica Bowman. I'm an associate professor of fine arts and art history in the humanities department at LaGuardia. And I've been working with ePortfolio for the last 7 years, and the entire time that I've been at LaGuardia, actually, ever since Howard was there with us. And we've been trying to think about how we can build on the first iteration of the Humanities Alliance, where we had the fellows come in and work specifically with faculty. One of the main pursuits that we have at LaGuardia is the student use of an ePortfolio, which is a digital platform that allows them to use it for academic work. They use it for advising, for transfer, and we're also developing showcase portfolios with the students where they can use it for transfer, they can use it for job applications, but also we have workshops and showcases at the end of the semester where students can show off their work. So what we are hoping with these fellows is that they would really get a 360-degree introduction to ePortfolio. Where we could talk with students, we could work with faculty, and then they would be working with people in career and advising as well, to help put together focus groups, these showcases at the end of the semester. And hopefully this is something that will build very logically after the last year and a half of virtual learning, where so much work is being done online. So we're really trying to tap into all of those different things that have been happening recently, and hopefully we'll get some very eager fellows to come and work with us. Tanya, would you like to add?
Thank you, Jessica. Of course, I would like to add, good morning, everyone. So I am in the natural sciences department, but I've also been working on ePortfolio. I guess it seems like my entire adult life now, but certainly the entire time that I've been at LaGuardia. And right now I am working on developing a core ePortfolio for liberal arts students. And so at LaGuardia, we have a liberal arts, social sciences, and major. We also have liberal arts, math, and science major, as well as many options. So we are building a e-portfolio for our liberal arts majors that's based on the liberal arts identity. So hopefully one of you will come in and help us with helping the students to develop their own understanding of the importance of liberal arts as an educational venture. So we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Can I just chime in really quickly after Tanya to say that I know her as a colleague, and she activates the humanities in her biology classes. Her students make sculptures, they make art. She has a really creative, engaging way of teaching. So I think the partnership between science and
Thank
humanities.
you, Priscilla. Thank you.
So Rosalia asked if she could receive this in addition to her current GAB funding. Is your GAB funding a GCF? Is that where you're getting it? So it's a graduate assistant B. So if you are a GC fellow, and that's how you've gotten your GAB, then this would replace the service requirement on your GAB. So instead of teaching, you would be doing this project instead. So it's not in addition to, it's a replacement for. And I believe, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, other folks who know about this, I believe that there is a cap on the amount of funding that each graduate student can receive for each student. So it also I don't think you can hold 2 GABs. I think it exceeds the amount of funding that each graduate student is allowed to have. So this would replace your other GAB. Good question though, important. Are there other questions?
I have a quick question. Sorry, my video's off. I'm in my PJs.
No problem.
Thank you so much for these presentations. Everything's so interesting. I'm just a first-year student, so I'm just sort of gathering information at the moment. But I wonder if I also have a graduate assistantship B through the GC fellowship, and I'm still sort of confused about the structure. And also, I wonder, is there a certain taboo about like some PhD students leaving their teaching responsibilities to come over and do these fellowships? Because I would anticipate that in my field, I'm a musicology student, that there might be a certain taboo about like leaving my teaching responsibilities to come over and do something like this.
Well, I can't speak to the taboos in your precise department, although we did have a fellow, CUNY Humanities Alliance fellow that came from music for sort of the last 2 years, from 2018 to 2020. I didn't hear any ruckus about sort of leaving teaching responsibilities behind. I think that this is an opportunity to broaden that experience. And to look beyond just the teaching structure and think about education and humanities education and higher education a little bit broader, in broader terms. I think that's also why we're looking for folks generally who are in their years or entering years 3 through 5, because it allows them to have some teaching experience already coming into this sort of program, so they can build on and use that teaching experience in their work with faculty.
That's great. Thank you so much. And oh, sorry.
Katina wants to jump in. Yeah.
I was just going to say that, okay, thanks. I was just going to say that I think that, you know, you're not wrong to raise the question of what is, how things are viewed within a department. And I think it's always good to, you know, have conversations with fellow students and advisors about expectations. I think that one of the things that really, you know, I mean, we know that higher education is often a realm in which prestige matters for how things are viewed and in what ways. And I think that it's an unusual and an exciting opportunity. And the fact that it's funded by the Mellon Foundation makes that opportunity more legible in spaces where there might be some pushback against shifting away from your teaching responsibilities. So it's not that we want to continue that prestige economy, but I think that where that is an indicator of legibility, it can be useful if there is a little bit of resistance. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that this is, you know, as everyone has discussed, this is a new phase of the program. This is the first year we're getting started. If you are someone who really loves to be able to be a part of something from the ground up and can roll with things as there's some changes along the way, a first year of a program like this is a great opportunity for that. There will be some bumps on the road. There will be some things that change over time, but you'll also get to be a part of how that gets built and how we make changes for future years.
Yeah, feel free, Jessica.
I just wanted to add, I had worked for the Humanities Alliance when we had our fellows in the first iteration of this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was to make sure that students had experience working in an actual school, which I think a lot of colleges don't necessarily get. But your question about leaving the teaching responsibilities and coming in, one of the kind of shocking things about getting your first job in academia is that teaching is only a portion of it. And there's so many other things that you're expected to know how to do and learn how to do very, very quickly. And one of the great things about a fellowship like this is it does give you a taste of how a college is running from the point of view of a faculty member. And you'll have some experience there that other people who don't have this fellowship simply won't have. And so I think it's going to be something that will make you much more attractive when it comes to going onto the job market, because you will have hands-on experience doing the sorts of things that colleges will need you to do from the ground running when you get the job.
If I could build on that, and first to acknowledge that Katina literally wrote the book on this question on the role of the humanities and rethinking doctoral education. But this, and building on what Jessica said, you know, those spaces are pedagogical spaces. They're spaces where humanistic work and thinking happens. And this phase of the Humanities Alliance is a very intentional extension of phase one, which was really an effort to better understand within the context of the Graduate Center how humanities work happened in community college classrooms. This project asks now how humanities works in community colleges beyond the classroom, right? And so there's a real kind of a set of questions that are motivating the structure of this project. And beyond kind of thinking about your individual roles on the campuses, you'll have opportunities to think with Katina and me and Sujong and Casey and Luis about what those lessons mean for doctoral training, right? And the ways that we at the Graduate Center talk about the humanities, right? Because the taboo that Evangeline mentioned is something we should understand, we should interrogate, we should in many ways resist and question. And it's important for those concerns to be part of this project. In fact, those concerns are at the heart of our motivation. So thank you for bringing them.
Howard, did you want to jump in?
Oh, Howard. Yeah.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I want to build a little bit on what Jessica said a minute ago and Luke kind of expanded. But really, I'm thinking about Jessica's remarks about the experience of going into the first academic job, and with in the community college context, the focus always being on teaching, but that is not the complete job. That is not what you are expected to learn and to be able to do as you move through the stages of a career. In our context at Guttman, the arts class sits in a very critical space in the first year curriculum. And we are in the process of rethinking that space and rethinking what it means in the trajectory of the student's education, rethinking how it functions. It has a very strong, as I mentioned earlier, a very strong experiential component where students are going to museums, are going to cultural institutions, and those experiences have been very valuable and at times very fraught, because community college students, particularly students of color, moving into spaces like the Metropolitan Museum it's not a simple process, and it's something that we are very aware of and want to work on, and that will be part of the work at Guttman. It will be part of what the fellows who work with us will be exposed to, and will have an opportunity to help make better than it is now. So that's a little bit different than what Jessica was driving at, but in a sense it isn't, because it's the expansion of the role, the faculty role, beyond simply what happens inside the classroom. And I think that's going to be a part of our project for sure.
Carlos, do you want to chime in on this question? There is another question in the background, but feel free to chime in on this one.
Just very quickly, sometimes when you're teaching, you don't have the opportunity to plan intentionally the work that you're going to be bringing to the classroom. And these projects across the board are going to give you the opportunity for you to have a conversation with faculty and go through that process, that thinking process, planning process, to make sure that the work that is coming to the classroom is more intentional. So the opportunity that you're going to be having is looking at teaching, a 360-degree perspective, to make sure that you are able to understand the benefits of that planning that happens. And it is very complex, because usually when you get to teach, if you're teaching full-time, your teaching load is occupying all your time, and the planning that the time for planning that you have is very minimal. And for you to be able to have that opportunity to work with faculty and help them to develop that process in how that particular project is going to be translated to teaching is going to be a great experience that you are going to have.
Jim, did you want to chime in too?
Yeah, I've connected a new thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I wanted to, what Howard and Carlos were just saying is really important. And I'll reference something about hiring, and then the question about experiential learning. So at BMCC, and I'm sure this is true at the other community colleges, we have a lot of faculty who served as writing fellows over the years. And so that provides an experience that's, in addition to teaching and research and scholarship, that is really attractive to community college hiring processes. So it gives you that broader concept. In terms of what we're planning at BMCC, and this relates to what somebody was saying earlier about digital education. I mean, we've just gone through this whole pandemic shift to remote learning. And so it's brought up across the country and in New York City, the need for instructional design, and to think about helping faculty in different disciplines create a learning experience that works face-to-face and remotely in these new hybrid forms, I think would be a really interesting experience, and provide the fellow with really great resources for creating their own learning experiences when they either while they're continuing to teach or getting that first job. For BMCC, experiential learning means a number of things. It means internships, it means service learning, and it means study abroad if we are to go abroad again. And it also means COIL, the collaborative online learning experience. And so for us, that's what experiential learning means, and we can talk a little bit more about any of those areas if you like, but that's our overview.
And Carlos, do you want to chime in on experiential learning? So the question is, can you speak a little bit more to the kinds of experiential learning that fellows would be working with faculty to develop?
Sure. And this also is also a reflection on when we were talking about the projects that we had in place. That was before the pandemic. Right now, we had all of this shift and what the transition to distance learning has brought to us. And there's a great opportunity for us to be rethinking on how the example of doing service learning. Right now we have restrictions on students going to a particular place to do service learning, and then faculty trying to identify new approaches on how students can continue to do a service learning project in the virtual space. So the idea is that for service learning, for example, is identifying partnerships with CBOs, community-based organizations, and identifying within the context of the classroom, let's say a sociology class or perhaps an early childhood class, identifying those CBOs that will provide that opportunity and that experience for students to do service learning. So identifying what partnerships make sense, bringing everything that new that has come. So how do I think about, if I cannot do it in person, how do I do this virtually and still make sure that there's an impact? Because the idea for service learning and civic engagement is to make sure that students are able to to provide a positive impact in the society. So those will be some of the conversations that fellows are going to be able to partner with faculty and brainstorm and bring ideas to make sure that these projects expand or re-identify the different things. For learning communities, the same idea. There is this challenge of how do we keep students engaged in the virtual environment? How do we bring those new ideas of bringing a student that is taking biology and connecting with a student that is taking a psychology class or sociology class, and how they identified commonalities and are able to bring those conversations? How do I bring that in the virtual space and also in the regular space, so that there is a connection between the groups in these different classes, and identifying what assignments will make sense to connect. So that will be the same thing, a partnership between fellows, faculty, and of course the support from the Center for Teaching and Learning at Hostos.
Was that enough information, Ariel? I just want to check in if you don't have any follow-ups. Yeah, okay, great. So the next question on the table is, I'll be in my 5th year next year, and my GAB is a WAC fellowship. Do you think these are good reasons to replace a WAC fellowship with this fellowship in case I'm accepted? How is it regarded, or is it completely a personal decision? Katina, I know you were already commenting in the chat. Do you want to go ahead and start?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think yes, it's a personal decision. It depends on what your goals are in the years ahead and how you see this fitting into your own trajectory. I think it's a terrific opportunity. It's really unusual for us to be able to offer this kind of program. I think that if you are interested in what's often called like alt-act type work, I think it's a really great possibility to see some of the things that happen around and kind of between the more commonly seen educational spaces. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage anyone who feels interested to throw your hat in the ring, at least to have a further conversation. If you're interviewed, then that'll give you a chance to ask some of the deeper questions as well. But yeah, we hope you'll consider it.
I would also add practically that this is a 2-year fellowship, whereas the WAC fellowships are 1-year fellowships. So just as a kind of medium-term planning, or I guess short to medium-term planning tip, it can get you another year of support. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, but the intention is to keep fellows on for 2 years.
Other questions? This discussion has been so great so far. Other questions, either in chat? Oh, there's a long one. Okay. Can I speak a little bit more about applying and selecting process, when the interviews would be, who would be interviewing us, and all of that? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So the link actually should work, and I'll paste it in the chat again. So there's the call for applications. So the selection committee is going to be myself, Luis, and Katina. So we're going to have the first, so we're going to review all the applications and select those for the first interview. And the first interviews will be, I just emailed about this morning, will be in beginning of March. And then we are going to have a second round of interviews with the campus partners as well. So sort of the finalists from the first interviews will come in and meet with campus partners. So you'll have a chance to ask deeper questions about the campus projects through the interview process. Does that answer your question? If there's anything about the, okay, great, perfect. And then Christina asked why the 6th year students are not eligible for this year's call and if it is negotiable. Unfortunately, this year it is not negotiable. We feel like there's so many unfortunate things happening in the world that we wish we could expand it. There's a couple of reasons. One is a funding restriction on our end and with our funder. And the other is sort of a pragmatic time in the fellowship. So it's both reasons. Are there other questions?
I guess one other kind of programmatic thing I can mention is that particularly since Sujung and I and Luis and Luke are all really deeply involved, that this is also a nice way to see some of the other kind of non-discipline based or interdisciplinary programs that happen at the Grad Center, the Futures Initiative and the TLC definitely, as well as other programs that we collaborate with. So if you've been curious about what happens in those spaces, this is a nice way to hopefully get to know some of the other fellows in those programs and also get a sense of what happens not only on the public facing side of each of those programs, but kind of how things happen behind the scenes too. A big part of what we're hoping to do both through this fellowship and through other programs like Futures Initiative is to really pull back the veil about higher education, about systems and structures that are not always readily apparent. And so we hope that that's something that really takes place throughout the course of these fellowships as well, a chance to see some of the inner workings that sometimes can be hard to see when you're a student. So.
Are there other questions or even just comments from partners who want to chime in? Feel like we've missed aspects of the program to overview?
This is actually more on a structural consideration, and I don't know, Casey and team at the GC, how you want to work this out. Guttman and LaGuardia have a slightly different calendar from the other two campuses in the traditional, even the GC calendar. So that's we have a 12/6 approach. So we're not starting our spring. I think this is the same for you at Guttman, Howard, until the first weekend of March, like into the second week. So it just extends and changes a little bit how we do this work. Because we're not in the classroom with this project, with this new iteration, I don't think it will have the same effect on people's schedules, but it might be something just to figure out that it's a little bit different and the calendar doesn't necessarily align the same way.
Yeah, I just thank you, Eric, for bringing that up. our calendar and LaGuardia's are different. It's called the 12-6 calendar. If you're interested, meaning 12 weeks as for session 1, 6 weeks for session 2, the two together comprising a fall semester and then the same pattern in the spring. The wrinkle for Guttman is that the arts class, which will be the centerpiece of the project, is actually offered during the fall 2 semester. So that means essentially January and February. And while while the project itself will not be designed, as Eric said, to be really classroom centric, that is when the class will be offered. And it would be beneficial for the fellows for sure to be available then in order to participate in the work of designing and rethinking the course and to see how it's actually being practiced. So again, Eric, thanks for pointing that out. It is a wrinkle that changes the schedule of how we do things.
I think Katina was also saying in the chat that can be a real benefit, that all the peak times, that the schedules are a little bit off, mean that all the peak things don't happen all at one time in one week. And that's certainly something we saw in the first phase, right? While other folks were, really stressed about finals, we weren't quite there yet on some of the calendars. And so it's sort of like you could stress about your GC stuff first and then stress about your campus-based project later. So I think that was helpful in some cases. And I think it just really depends on the project you're working on and that flexibility that you're willing to have, and that those structural and practical matters will also be part of our conversations during interviews. But it's a really important note to have early on.
If I could just add to that, we'll take extra care to make sure that there's equity and balance across the fellowships, across the 4 campuses. As part of the assignment process, we'll be sussing out people's flexibility and making sure that everyone has the same workload. We all, as fellowship directors at the GC, are deeply committed to your progress to degree. That will be a component of this project. None of this work is supposed to impede that, right? So I think we'll just have to kind of work with LaGuardia and Guttman to kind of make sure we all agree as to what the best boundaries are for the work. And we do have some flexibility, as Eric said, because it's not classroom based. So it's just something to work through.
Yeah, and I would say actually our work together on this project would be aimed towards making you a more marketable candidate for future job searches, not less, right? Like not detracting from how quickly you're moving through or what you bring to the table when you are on the market. And we also, through the seminar and development with Louise, I don't know if you want to say more, we'll work on that marketability. Okay, so we have a new question. Someone is going into their 4th year and will not have coursework. Yay. But does this affect eligibility for the fellowship? No, it doesn't. If you don't have coursework, that's absolutely fine. Any other questions? We have 8-ish minutes left for this. Any? Great. I'm glad this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. If I can't answer them directly, I mean, you see we have so many good partnerships here. I can pass it on to the person who can answer the questions if you have deeper questions about a campus project or something.
Sam had a question.
Oh, Sam.
Oh, sorry. Well, just a super quick question. I'm just reading through the positions and just to clarify, sort of like just a double check. I'm just make sure I understand it. The job, the work would mostly be sort of it wouldn't be teaching per se. But would it involve working with teachers?
Yes. Yeah. So you would be working with faculty and hopefully some students along the way as well, right? Getting exposure to those who work in and around teaching, but you would not be teaching a classroom. No.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good and important clarifying question though. So thanks, Priscilla. Any other questions or one more question? Should references be related to our teaching or one of them? That's a great question. It's honestly a judgment call. We will see your teaching experience on your application and we can talk to you about that. If you really feel like that is part of your application or a strong suit that you bring to the table as a candidate, then absolutely include one of your references that knows about your teaching. But if you are representing other skills and abilities, right, like if you're more interested in doing e-portfolio work and you think that your curation abilities are more important or more valuable in this application, then you should choose folks who can represent that aspect of your work, if that makes sense. Cool. Okay, any other closing thoughts or comments or questions before? So I do have one more question came in. If it's possible to postpone a year, so if they're sort of in their 4th year and want to do the WAC. So we will have these fellowship opportunities for a few years coming. For the next 3 years, we'll be opening a call similar to this one. So if you want to wait and apply next year, you're welcome to. But the project, I will say too, the projects for that next cohort may be different. So you may not see exactly the same project. So if you're really invested in one of the projects, now is the time. Now is the time to apply. Okay. If there's no other questions or closing comments, I really want to thank you all, especially the partners. Thank you so much for coming and chiming in. As Luke said, it's always enlivening and to experience the brilliance and just the crosstalk across campuses. And we're really hopeful that dialogue will be sustained and furthered with our graduate fellows, right? Because each of the graduate fellows will be placed in a different campus and doing different projects. And we're really hopeful that time brought together at the Graduate Center will allow everybody to reflect on how these campuses and how the different projects connect to each other and how this sort of work in the humanities brings us further in higher education. Does anybody else have any closing comments? Okay, thank you all. The recording will be up in a day or so, and so will the FAQs.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all.
And
Thanks, everyone, for
applications are
coming.
due February 15th, so make sure you get them in.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye, thank you.